we're going to be breaking down the position groups on the offense, going through the quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, receivers, offensive line. We're going to be breaking down, I think we're going to give them a grade as well heading into spring. We're heading into spring, so we don't really know exactly who's going to be starting. There's obviously going to be another portal that opens up, so you can add, you can subtract. So I think we're just going to start off. Well, we're going to start off in a pretty easy spot, the quarterback position. I mean, you obviously have the leader in DJ Lagway, the guy that you're really building everything around here. If you don't have DJ Lagway, you're probably not the coach here at Florida. Now, if you're going to say like, oh, well, that's bad, it's around one player, but it's also like his on the field play is man, I don't know how to even it. I don't know, man. I don't even know the word I was going to say, but Lagway kind of is Florida at this point because I think we do have good players on defense and around him on offense. But you look at the national media when they talk about Florida, oh, they're not talking about Caleb Banks and Tyreek Sapp. They're not talking about Jake Slaughter. It's like, oh, well, can DJ Lagway lead Florida to the playoffs, to a national championship? So it's like Lagway just is the guy here, and we got to hope that he is the guy that we want him to be.
Yeah, well, there's one thing that changed the second half of last season when Florida started winning big games, and it wasn't the starting center. It wasn't, the defensive line personnel.
I think it was.
Well, but what I'm saying is those pieces were all there. It was Lagway that sort of made it all work down the stretch. I mean, do you not agree with that?
I think Lagway was a part of it, but like you go look at the Tennessee game, Mertz has us up 10-0, then Mertz gets hurt. Lagway throws an interception on that first play after Mertz gets hurt, then Tennessee ties it. I mean, do you think if Mertz stays in that game that we win that? I mean, Mertz probably doesn't throw that interception.
Honestly, no, because we still had interception aside, Lagway also, threw the touchdown that tied it at the end. So, and also there was the mismanagement at the end of the first half. Like there were a lot of factors that went in. I guess the point I'm more trying to make is the ceiling for the offense increased tremendously when DJ came in. And I mean, I think it had an intangible effect on every aspect of the team because, again, it's not like we changed anything significant personnel-wise in the defense that made it go from horrifically bad to, good, if not very good, down the stretch of the season.
I mean, you say Mertz had us up 10-0. We should have been up 24-0. I mean, even when Lagway was on the field in that first half, some bad play calling. Or, I mean, if a play doesn't work, people are going to call it bad play calling. Like the 4th and short with Lagway, and we do the sweep to Trey Wilson. Bad play calling, you can call it bad, you can call it not bad. I don't really care. I mean, the team was the team. And, I mean, even you go back to the UCF game, that first game after the bye week, the offense was very fluid with Mertz on the field. Like, we weren't really hitting big plays. But, I mean, looking against Tennessee, Mertz was driving down the field a lot. Like every single drive, they were driving down the field. Now, we only had 10 points, and 3 of those, I think, were with Lagway on the field. Or, no, sorry, it was with Mertz on the field. But, I mean, the offense was moving. The defense was playing lights out. I mean, they had Tennessee shut out in that first half. I mean, held UCF to 13. But I still think the defense got better during that bye week. I mean, we've talked about it a lot, how there was just that fundamental change during that bye week between weeks 4 and week 6. So it's like the defense still improved. And I mean, I think we beat Tennessee if Mertz doesn't get hurt. I do think we would lose to Ole Miss. And I think LSU would be 50-50 if Mertz still didn't get hurt. I think Lagway did improve the team, but I don't think the difference in this team being top 15, top 20, however you want to rank us as a team, not record wise, but actually as a team, to top 25 with Mertz versus with Lagway.
I mean, maybe, but we were not a top 25 team until Lagway came in.
I mean, yeah, of course, we didn't win the games until Lagway came in, but
yeah,
I feel like if you just want to look at you just want to look at results alone, like the win and loss. You can. I mean, that's obviously what ends up what matters. But I feel like there are other extenuating circumstances you do have to look at that could change things. Just a simple coin flip.
No, I mean that's absolutely true. And we're veering off the topic at hand here.
We are.
But no, I mean I think like looking at the quarterback room going into 2025, I mean it's hard not to feel good about it because like you said, Lagway is everything. Like Lagway is the Billy Napier tenure at this point. If Lagway works out, Billy's probably going to work out at least until Lagway moves on.
Yep.
And if Lagway doesn't work out for whatever reason, it's pretty much impossible for me to foresee a scenario where Lagway is considered a disappointment in 2025 and Billy Napier is still the coach going into 2026. Like, don't really see how that's possible.
Yeah, I 100% agree there. I mean, so we look deeper down into this depth chart at the QB position. You do have Harrison Bailey, guy, ton of experience. Started out at Tennessee, went to UNLV, then Louisville, now at UF. I think when you're going into the transfer portal to get a backup, probably the best we could have done. I mean, obviously we had Deshaun Purdy, who I probably would have said higher ceiling than Bailey. Don't know if the floor, how low the floor really was with Deshaun Purdy. Probably would have liked him for his mobility, but I think you're getting Harrison Bailey. You're getting a guy that's going to be fine. He's a backup. Like, you're hoping you don't have to play him, and if you do, it's in the end of the game, or maybe Lagway just has to sit out a drive. I mean, I think it's a fine guy. Then you also have Tramell Jones. I suspect Tramell Jones will be the third string. I mean, you hope you don't have to go to Tramell Jones at any point, so we can take a red shirt. But I think if we got in a situation like we did this past year, where Mertz and Lagway got hurt, I think Jones would be in instead of the fourth string, Aiden Warner.
I think you're right if it were like, God forbid, both suffering like season-ending injuries. I think if Bailey has to start a game and loses his helmet, I think it'll be Aiden Warner.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to say. If it's a moment where we're having to start multiple games, it would be Tramell. Yeah. But if it's just like a couple plays, couple drives, probably Aiden Warner.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's hard not to feel better about the quarterback room than you did last year.
Definitely.
I mean, the drop back. I mean, at least the quarterback room post Graham Mertz injury, because I mean, as you saw, an injury to DJ's hamstring, and you're playing a walk-on former Yale backup, and that went about as well as you would expect that it would. Yeah. So, I don't think Harrison Bailey is like fantastic. I think if we're at the point where he's having to start 4 or 5 games, I think you can wrap it up and go home. But I think he's a guy that if you had to come out and start a single game, I think it'd be better than what you saw against Texas this past year. Also, Clay Millen is still here, I guess, right? I mean, he's still I haven't seen anything that he's leaving. I think he's on the roster still. I don't know what his situation is. That whole thing has been very bizarre.
Maybe he's getting a degree here at UF, finishing something here at UF. That's, if I had to guess, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
I'm not going to expect him to play because we didn't see him at all, even in big situations this past year. So, yeah. Overall, I'm going to give the QB room an A.
Yeah.
Just because you have DJ Lagway and you have a good backup in Harrison Bailey. If we would have had a guy that we recruited out of high school, if we had Jaden Rashada, somehow he was here, Austin Simmons, if he was the backup, I'd probably give it an A+. But we have missed on some recruits, so now we're having to go and get a okay transfer QB to be the backup. But it would be an A+, but I'm gonna go with A.
Yeah, I was kind of between an A and an A and an A- here. I think I'll go with A just because I don't think on paper it's the best quarterback room top to bottom by any means, but I just have that much belief in DJ Lagway, and I think the rest of it's good enough. Harrison Bailey, a guy that started multiple Power 5 games. Tramell Jones, not an elite recruit, but a high level recruit, true freshman. I think. And then obviously a guy that we expect, maybe not a Heisman contender, just because I don't know if he'll produce like that in Billy's offense, but one of the better quarterbacks in college football.
I mean, you just got to think you can't lose your starting QB 3 years in a row. I
One
mean,
would think, but I think you'd also be hard pressed to find an institution that's had as bad quarterback luck in the last decade or so as
yeah.
the University of Florida.
All right. Okay, but let's go to the running back room now. So I think we have some interesting discussions after Jaden Ball. I think it's pretty safe to say Jaden Ball will be the starting running back. I mean, they sometimes run out a different running back for the first drive. I mean, we saw a little bit this past year where I think Jacoby Jackson started like the Texas game where he was on the first drive, but I think it was split, but like Ball was listed as a starter. So I'm going to assume Jaden Ball starts, had his freshman season. A lot of people saw it in the spring game where I was like, okay, this kid is someone you have to get on the field. It does take a Montreal Johnson injury to really see Jaden Ball get a lot of touches. But when he got those touches, started his first career game against Kentucky and got 5 touchdowns and 100 yards. And then he just kept continuing it. Good games against Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss. Like, he had good games the rest of the season. And as a freshman running back, you assume you're going to continue developing him. We've seen it a lot with Jabbar Jalou, developing guys like Montreal Johnson and Trevor Etienne. So, and Jacoby Jackson even we're seeing developed. So I'm going to assume it's safe to say Ball is the starter. And what are your thoughts on Jan Ball?
I mean, yeah, I think Baugh is really promising. Was I think, like I said, DJ was a big part of the main reason the offense emerged. I still believe that, but I don't want to take credit away from Baugh because I think he was a big part of that too. Nothing again. Like, I mean, Montreal was really good for the Gators. I think Baugh maybe at least at his best last year was even better than what we've seen from Montreal, or at least looked like he has the potential to be better.
That's fair.
So,
I mean, I'll say Montreal. I'll say Montreal. Like the Tennessee game, Ball. Like none of the other running backs to get going against Tennessee, but Montreal was kind of cooking Tennessee. Like I think that injury in that Tennessee game is also underappreciated, like for how big of an impact it did have. Because I think Montreal had like 80 yards or 60, 80 yards or something, like 5 yards a carry, while the other running backs I think finished in the 20s.
Yeah,
it's like 2 yards a carry. So
yeah,
I do think people underrate Montreal a bit.
That's probably fair. And he was a really good player for the Gators, so I'm not trying to do that. But no, but I really like the ceiling with Ball. I think, you have the potential to have one of the best rushing offenses in the country next year with the guys you bring back at running back and obviously the starters coming back along the offensive line, which we'll get to. But I think it's, potential for a really good running game, especially because when you look at like the experience, in this room, Jacoby Jackson, obviously we talked about a little bit, a guy that, with Montreal's injury, kind of got that RB2 workload most of the time and, impressed with it. I think Trayon Webb and KD Daniels are both guys that have had their moments at times. We'll see which one of them kind of emerges as the next guy up. I'll be honest, I think I'm not sure I necessarily believe that both of them will still be here by fall.
That's where I think things get interesting. I don't think Jacoby Jackson has the second string running back like spot secured.
Okay.
Because we saw, I mean, early in the season when Webb was healthy, he was the second string running back to Montreal Johnson. So I think that's something they're still going to look at. I mean, that's where I think things get interesting with Jacoby Jackson, Trayon Webb, and KD Daniels. I think you're going to see one of them transfer in the spring, but I'm not going to say that with 100% confidence. But like I do really like Jacoby Jackson. I think we saw a lot of good from him last year. I think with the emergence of Ball, Jacoby kind of got a little bit underappreciated too. Like, because he had some really good plays, Georgia game. He's the one who tied it up with 5 minutes left, where he had a really good drive there. But that's something I don't know if we would have got from Ball or Montreal or any of the other running backs on this in this RB room. So I was really impressed with Jacoby Jackson on the season. And then Webb. Webb is kind of just okay, like from what we saw from him. Like, that's the guy I expect to transfer. I expected him to transfer after the season, but he announced he's returning. maybe things change here in this spring practice cycle. Maybe they don't. That's kind of where I'm a bit shook.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that there's just a lot of different ways kind of this carry distribution could shake out. I think though, I would agree. I expect one of them to hit the portal, and I think that'll kind of I think whoever hits the portal will kind of give you a pretty clear picture of how that battle went down.
Yeah. We also have some freshmen in this room. We bring in Byron Lewis, sorry, from St. Thomas Aquinas, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think it's from St. Thomas Aquinas. Led that team in like 1,700 rushing yards, led them to a state championship. He's someone I really like. I don't know. He's not
American Heritage. Sorry,
American Heritage. Okay. Yeah, that's right. I got confused there. But yeah, I mean, someone I really like for the future. Didn't really see much of him this year. Waltez Clark, another 4-star, also out of Plant from Tampa. A guy, again, probably not going to see too much of him. And Chad Gasper. I think he's a walk-on or a preferred walk-on. But that isn't confirmed. I guess we'll see in the come spring. Come spring. I'm also gonna give the running back room an A. Man, it's tough. Because do I think Jaden Ball is gonna be the well, I mean, if we're talking about the whole room, the thing with Billy's offense is he splits the carries. Like, you're probably not going to see one guy go for 1,000 yards. But, I mean, we saw it with the first 2 years here where you're going to have Montreal and Etienne go for like 800 yards. And then you have some other guys go for like 300. So is that enough for like an A+? Because I expect the yards are going to be there.
I'll say I'm an A+. I'm an A+.
You're an A+?
On the running back room. I'm an A+ on the running back room. I mean, maybe there's not like the completely proven guy the way that like Montreal was coming into last season, but I think there's an insane amount of talent here. I think it's talented enough to weather an injury or two. And that's to me the mark. And like, we know Billy's going to have a productive rushing offense. Like that's the one thing he's really good at. Like, and I mean, I have my criticisms of Billy, but I'll never take that away from him. The man can design a run game, design and implement a run game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with an A. But I mean, it could be A+, it's I'm probably gonna have some higher grades than you later on. So, I'll even things up a bit. So true. I'm gonna give it an A. Yeah. Let's get to maybe definitely a weaker position here with the tight end room. Outside of one guy, I don't know who's gonna start. So Hayden Hansen started last year. He's the guy that I'm pretty confident is gonna be starting at one of those 2 tight end spots as that main blocker, decent pass catcher, nothing special. I mean, he's solid hands, you can get open from time to time. Not going to expect too much from him. The next tight end spot, I'm really between like 2 guys here. Tony Livingston saw some good production from at the end of the season, but we've also seen that with like Arliss Boardingham 2 years ago, I guess you would say, 2 seasons ago, where it's like, middle to end of the season, he got more production, and then we didn't see it at all this year. And the name that I think is more exciting, Amir Jackson, I think he was like the 99th ranked recruit in that 2024 class. High upside tight end in that receiving game. We haven't seen Billy have good production from his tight ends in his years here. Is it because they haven't had that guy who can go and get those yards and make those plays, or is it the offense? I think if Amir Jackson is a player that we see it from, we will know if it's the offense or if it's the players.
Yeah, it's really bizarre to me that the tight end has been such an issue position for the Gators under Billy because they run so much 12 personnel. Like, it's weird to me that tight end recruiting and development hasn't been a bigger emphasis for Billy than it has been. And I mean, because like I said, we have 2 tight ends on the field a lot of the time, so you kind of know what role Hayden Hansen's going to play. It's the same role he's been playing. I would expect Tony Livingston is kind of the guy that at least starts off in that sort of Arliss role. Hopefully he can be more productive in it than Arliss was. We'll see about Amir Jackson. Like, I don't love this room though. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I'm a little surprised they didn't take a transfer here. I kind of expected them to.
I think there's something we gotta also talk about. So I said I'm confident Hayden Hansen starts, which I am. There was I don't think he was as good as a run blocker as you'd have liked from this past year. People forget too, the last transfer cycle we took Caleb Rios from Air Force. He had to sit a year because different transfer portal rules with the armed services academies. So I think he's someone that, coming from that option system, is going to be a good run blocker.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if we do see Rios in his one season here push Hayden Hansen. I don't know too much about him. I didn't go back and watch any of his stuff. Maybe he's just here because, he's going to focus on education, and UF's a great school. I've heard some decent things about him, and so I'm going to say that could be someone we see become a really good tight end blocker for us.
You're talking about Rios, right?
Rios, yeah.
Yeah, so he's a walk-on.
Okay.
Not my concern here, because 11 starts in 2023 at Air Force. So I mean,
okay, so
certainly not like a guy who's green. Kind of my issue here is it looks like only 10 career catches in 3 years in 4 years at Air Force from him.
That's where I was getting
eight catches for 97 yards in his one season as the starter. So
that's where I was getting on the run blocker. We're not gonna see him catch much, which I mean, again, with how bad the tight end room is, if we had a really good run blocker, at least you had something, which we didn't really have this year.
Yeah.
So
I guess that just doesn't elevate the position group though, because Hayden Hansen's already pretty good at that. So what we really need is obviously you're not going to get Kyle Pitts, but someone that can actually stretch the field and be a factor in the receiving game. We thought, I'm surprised it didn't work out with our list, because I thought the flashes he showed early on were pretty promising, but clearly didn't work out.
Yeah, a lot of this tight end room is really going to be judged on if Livingston or Amir Jackson can break out. I do think the ceiling is a lot higher with Amir Jackson, but we'll see if it ends up playing out. I'm gonna give this room a C+, and that's probably being generous.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a flat C for me.
Flat C, okay.
And even that I think you could easily make a case for C- here, considering the only even really proven player in the group is a guy who doesn't really produce on the stat sheet, is kind of just good at a role. So
yeah, my grading was really just a lot of veteran players. You're not counting on someone young. You're not being okay, this guy's gonna go out there. He might be a bad run blocker. He might not even be able to catch the ball. So at least we have something there. All right, do you want to do offensive tackle or wide receiver next?
Let's change it up. Let's do offensive tackle.
Offensive tackle, okay. So left tackle, I assume left tackle. One of the tackles is going to be Austin Barber. That's 100% locked in. Austin Barber will be starting. I've even seen mock drafts have him as a projected first-round pick. I don't think that happens, but it just shows how good of a guy he can be for us. Whether that's at left or right tackle, I'm going to say left tackle, because based on what we've seen from Billy, is probably going to be left tackle. But that other starting job is where it gets interesting. After the bowl game, the name we heard a lot about, not just from him impressing in the bowl game, but also end of the year practices, was Fletcher Westphal. I'm going to say that's the guy who starts the other tackle position, unless we get another guy in the transfer portal during that spring window. That's the one question I have. I think we do have some other more experienced guys like Cam Waits. I don't want him starting at tackle based on what we saw in that Miami game alone. There is still Devin Manuel who's on the team.
Yeah.
He missed a lot of the season with the injury. When we saw from him when he was getting a third of the snaps early on with splitting with Barber was just a lot of meh. Nothing too good. But maybe it was just him being in a new school, and then he didn't have the chance to get used to things because he got injured. Because he did have some decent grades at Arkansas. So it's not like he's just some horrible guy who's never done anything. It's he's just some decent stuff in the SEC. So I'm not going to 100% count him out. Another game I'm looking at was Caden Jones to start. Has another year than Westphal does here at UF. So he does have that edge on Westphal. And I did hear some good things coming into the season. We didn't really see him at all this year, but I've heard some good things going into the season. So that's kind of where I still have maybe a little inclination that he could do something.
Yeah, Barber, I mean, I think you got to feel pretty good about Barber the way he ended last season.
Yeah.
I think let me put it this way: did Crenshaw come after spring? I think Crenshaw was a winter edition, right?
He was December 17th.
Yeah. Okay. Now what is it saying? Like I think let me put it this way: I really hope Fletcher Westphal is the guy to secure that what
Yeah.
we assume will be the right tackle job, because I think it would maybe show something not great if he doesn't. I mean, like you said, Cam Waits. I mean, we've seen it. I'm not saying guys can't get better as veterans, as
Yeah.
upperclassmen, but what we saw was not good. Dev Manuel, like we'll see. Veteran guy, like you said, SEC experience, like not like a bad football player,
Yeah.
but probably not ideally what you want if you're developing talent at the position. I think Westfall is definitely the next like guy up that in terms of guys Billy's recruited and developed. He's certainly the guy that you would expect to be the next up to take that job, and is the most experienced of that kind of group competing for it, outside of Cam Waits, I guess. So yeah, I mean, like I think a lot of questions outside of Austin Barber. I mean, obviously a position where Florida hasn't recruited like at a super high level. I know they were trying to go after Solomon Thomas, would have been pretty far and away the
Well,
highest level.
he would have been interior.
Okay, true. He was listed as a no tackle, but yeah,
Yeah.
would have been tier. I guess like regardless, like haven't landed a lot of like super high tier offensive line recruits just in general under Billy Napier. So there's not like these elite recruits that are there waiting in the wings, but Fletcher Westfall's a guy that they seem to be really high on.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I also mentioned Caden Jones. He was a 4-star, low 4-star, but like higher than a lot of the guys on the roster. Yeah, exactly, Rob. We're just done with the weights experiment. Like, yeah, exactly. So Caden Jones, he was a 4-star. So was Marcus Maskell. Although I do think Maskell needs more development. Was in that same class as Westfall, a year younger than Caden, and it was also a lower ranked 4-star. I think the offensive line recruiting has been better than it was under Mullen. Although I would like to see it get better. I mean, we're probably going to be taking like 5 offensive linemen in this recruiting cycle. So if we can like land, did I do that or? Whoops. If we can land like 4-stars in this cycle, maybe. I mean, I doubt 5-star. Like I'm not going to even suggest it, but like if we can land like 4-stars, like 2 guys in it like top 200 area, like Westfall was and Roderick Kearney was, I'll feel a lot better, like and more solidified about the offensive line recruiting than like where I'm at right now. So I'm pretty confident Westfall, if we don't get a transfer, is going to be that guy. And we also do have some other young players, some freshmen we're bringing in. Tavares Dice, listed as an offensive tackle in 247. I've heard it's going to be like a flex, can play guard and tackle. And that's why we decided to go with him instead of spending the extra money on Solomon Thomas. We saw more value in what we're paying and what we're getting. And another 3-star freshman in Jahari Medlock. We'll see what we get from Medlock. I mean, we've seen guys develop as 3-stars from Billy, like Kinjaya Harris and Bryce Levette has developed pretty nicely at guard. Overall, the offensive tackle room, I think Barber is probably like an A-, and then that unknown spot probably going to be either a transfer or like Westfall, a guy they're pretty high on. As like I'm gonna go B+, and that's pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm at a B for the
B?
room as a whole.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm at a B. I mean, because I like Barber. I think Barber's a really reliable player.
Yeah.
I think, like I don't think it's necessarily gonna be bad at that other spot, but it's another spot where we kind of thought they were gonna go get a transfer and they didn't. So there's not a lot of experience coming back in this. So it's just a big question mark. So I think B+ is fine. I think going any higher than that would kind of be wish casting. Just because I think there's too many question marks, but I feel comfortable at B because I think at least one of those 2 guys is going to be like all SEC caliber, hopefully, or at least you certainly believe that.
I think I'd go B+ because again, I saw like mock drafts having Austin Barber as like a potential 1st-round pick, and then like Westfall's a pretty highly rated guy, so like I'm gonna give him a little bit more of a benefit of a doubt than you normally would for other players that we will see. All right, let's go to the offensive guards position. Now, this is a pretty good spot for us. I mean, the whole interior. Should we include centers in this, or should we do centers?
Yeah, let's just include centers because there's not as much to talk about with centers.
Actually, I'll just quickly do centers. Jake Slaughter, and then Jason Zandamela / Roger Kearney. I'm gonna go A+. Jake Slaughter, first team, All American, got his brick. And then you look at Jason Zandamela, who I think is the guy in waiting after Slaughter leaves. He was a top 50 recruit, top 100 recruit. Got in the transfer after his first spring, so didn't even burn any years or anything at USC. Kind of just judging based on his high school ranking. But with the development we've had on the offensive line, and even if it's Roger Kearney instead, I've heard a lot of good things about Kearney. He's just stuck behind some good guards. So, center, I'm just going to give it A+. I'll let you.
Yeah, I mean, no disagreements there. I mean, Jake Slaughter, probably the best center in college football coming into next season. And I mean, it's not like a full position group to evaluate like guard or tackle, but yeah, I mean, I think you feel as good as you can about a backup offensive lineman that lacked the experience. You feel about as good as you can with who's behind him. So yeah, I think A+ is totally fair there. I mean, maybe the strongest position, maybe on the entire team, honestly.
Absolutely. Okay. So now we go to the offensive guards. The two starters, I'm pretty confident that we're going to be starting. Damian George, Kenjaya Harris. You returned both of them from this season. You saw both of these guys really improve throughout the season. And at the end of the year, they were both playing really good football with George at right guard and Harris at left guard. Being next to an All-American center also obviously helps. But I think where things get interesting is you have Bryce Levette, who played some really good snaps. I'm not going to judge his guard ability based on what we saw in the bowl game when he was playing right tackle. But when we saw him at guard this year, I really liked what I saw from him. This is a guy that I think probably will end up starting in the 2026 season. So it's someone I'm really happy with. Roger Kearney is such a weird one to me because we've seen players in interviews say, who's the toughest guy one-on-one? We saw defensive linemen do these interviews, and they're like, Roderick Kearney and Damian George as well. But Roderick Kearney, they're saying one of the strongest players on the team and one of the hardest guys to go against one-on-one. So I assume he's going to be it's weird then seeing him be the backup to Kenjaya Harris because they were both part of that same recruiting class, if I'm not mistaken. And, Kearney obviously, I think, was the 121st ranked prospect in his class. He's the highest offensive lineman we had attained since Richard Garage, I think. So, it's a guy we had a lot of hope for. And I'm going to assume he's as good as they're making it sound he is. And I'm going to be really happy with this offensive guard unit you're going to see take on the field.
Yeah, really solid. Really solid 2 deep, honestly, here. I think you feel pretty good about 4 or 5 guys here. I mean, I think the starters, like we expect Harris and George are going to start. I mean, I think, George had a pretty rough year in 2022 playing tackle. Was a lot, 2023 playing tackle.
Yeah.
And, I'm not sure he was incredible this season at guard, but I think certainly was a lot better playing at guard. Was a nice addition, I guess you could say, to get him back, coming back this season because he initially entered the portal.
Well, his agent entered him into the portal or announced he was entering the portal. He didn't enter the portal himself.
Okay. So some interesting stuff going on.
He fired his agent that next day.
Yeah. So I mean, I think both these guys are solid. I mean, I don't think we've talked about this on the show. I still don't think it's entirely out of the question that Bryce Lovett beats one of them out for a starting job potentially. I think that's it. If you had to ask me where on this position could an incumbent starter get unseated, I'd probably say one of the guard spots is fairly high on the list.
I don't think George gets beat for a spot. I'm very confident George starts. If one does get beat out, it's going to be Harris.
Yeah.
I think George played really well to end that year last year. I think he's going to be someone that's going to be getting serious NFL attention.
But again, that isn't even being critical of the guys starting. It's more a function of how good the depth is here, that there's guys that could contend there. So all that being said, I think I'm at like an A- here.
Oh well, okay. I'm gonna go through the rest of the interior
Oh,
offensive line.
sorry.
You have Christian Williams, who's been a guy who was with Billy, who committed to Billy as like a low 3-star to Louisiana, followed him here. He's just been a guy, scout team guy, I suspect, a good guy in practice. I don't think he entered the transfer portal. So like I'm pretty sure of that. And then you also have 2 foreign guys, I guess. Noel Portenjagen from Germany and Enoch Wangoy from England. I've heard a lot of people actually really like Noel, like for the future as he progresses. So maybe he's a guy that could develop and be a pretty good player for us. And then you bring in true freshman Daniel Pierre-Louis. I heard Bud Elliott during the what is it on December 4th. Goodness, it just took my mind. National Signing Day. That he was doing the show and everything, and they were talking about Florida and how they flipped so many kids, and they were asking like, who's the underrated player in Florida's class? He was talking about when Pierre Louis was committed to FSU, he was like one of his most underrated players. So I think we might be underrating Pierre Louis a little bit, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, this offensive guard group is really good and still pretty young, so it's going to be 2 years until he probably sees the field if he's still here.
Yeah,
but it's someone that maybe we should keep an eye out and not just forget about him because of his ranking.
Yeah, and I mean, regardless of ranking, like most of these true freshman offensive linemen probably aren't going to play at all.
No.
Or if they will, it will be extremely limited. You just don't see that very often in the SEC, especially. So, I think like when I'm making my grades for these positions, the incoming freshmen don't really factor too much into it because they don't really factor into like how the actual position, outlook is in this coming season, I guess.
Besides maybe the next position.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay. So you're giving it an A-?
Oh, I'm only saying that regards to offensive linemen that I don't take the freshmen into account. Yeah.
So how'd you grade LSU going into 2022?
LSU, wait, their offensive line?
Yeah, because they had Will
okay,
Campbell.
I see your point. That's
No,
kind of
I'm just,
I'd say that's a edge case.
All right, so you're giving it an A-?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I think the starters here are solid. I think the depth is solid. Like you got to get 4 or 5 deep before you start getting to someone that I really don't feel good about playing significant snaps here. So I think maybe no one's elite in that group, and that's why it's not higher than that. But I think really solid across the board.
I'm also gonna go A- because of what you said. There's nobody elite, although I do think Damian George could be an NFL prospect. Kind of like how Brandon Crenshaw Dixon is. Like he's a projected like 4th or 5th round pick. That's where I think George could work himself to be. Still was a 4-star recruit out of high school as well. So he was a talented guy. I'm gonna go A- as well.
Yeah.
Now, maybe the most interesting position group to look at here, the wide receivers. The only name I'm gonna say that's gonna start surefire is Trey Wilson. He's going to be starting in that slot position. How much he improves or how much like his route running has improved throughout the years dealing with multiple injuries. He did miss some games his freshman year, missed 8 games this past season. I think he played some games, but didn't really touch the ball at all. I think it was more of a distraction for other teams with Trey Wilson. But, Trey Wilson starting your slot, definitely a solid guy, a good. He's probably going to be someone that you're seeing drafted, a projected draft pick in like those 3rd, 4th rounds where you see those gadget guys go. But he's not going to be that number 1 guy. The next guy I'm going to go to, J. Michael Sturdivant. He's that higher upside, lower floor type of, lower ceiling type of guy that you're getting who draft analysts love. He's like, oh my God, if you can develop him, he could be one of the better receivers in the NFL. Like getting those 3rd round pick type. We'll see how we develop him. I mean, Billy Gonzalez has been a really good developer in his 17 years at Florida. Nah, I don't think it's 17, but still, like in his 10 plus years, he's been a coach at Florida. He's been a guy we've seen develop a lot of players. So I think we will get a good development out of Sturdivant. But then that last wide receiver position, I think, is where it gets interesting.
Yeah, I mean, just starting with those first 2 guys, I think this is kind of like the recurring theme throughout the receiver room. There's very much a like because I think this receiver room, if like everything goes well, it could be
Oh my God.
incredibly good.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
there's just almost pretty much everyone we talk about. It's like, well, I see the ceiling, like I see how this could be good, but
I also see how it can be bad.
there's usually a pretty big but there. Like with Trey Wilson, it's he has not really managed to A, stay healthy, and B, like prove he can be a consistent, I guess more than like you kind of called him a gadget guy, like prove that he
Mm-hmm.
can be more than just sort of an offensive gimmick, like it can be a true receiver who's going to stretch the field and cause you problems. I think Sturdivant, it's like, I mean, the measurables are there, the talent's there, but
Speed's there.
his production's gone steadily down since his first year in college at Cal, and then going
Yep.
into his career at UCLA, it didn't really work out as well there. So it's like, can he get it back now that he's playing with what I would say is pretty clearly the most talented quarterback he'll have played with in his whole career? And then when you get beyond that, it's guys, going up next. I would assume the next guy you would want to talk about would be Aiden Mizell.
That's where I was gonna go. You do
Yeah.
have Aiden Mizell returning. We saw a bunch of flashes from him. We didn't. I think it hurt Mizell when Lagway was in because Lagway's only getting 10 completions a game, basically. Until later in the like the bowl game and Ole Miss game, we got a couple more. But Lagway, he's only given the ball so many times, and when you have guys like Elijah Badger and Chimere Dike who are probably going to be drafted, it's tougher to be the final person to get the ball. But I mean, we do see that upside for Mizell as well. He has that really good speed, really good 6'2", 6'3" height, good height, and the elusiveness. I mean, the play against Mississippi State that was taken back by the bogus blocking back, like that play alone is like, oh my God, how is this guy not getting 5-10 touches a game? I mean, it's there for Mizell. And I'm honestly not sure why we didn't try to get him the ball more. I mean, I guess I get why, because we had so many different targets. So maybe we do see us try to get him the ball more this year, but I'm not even sure if he's going to start.
Yeah. You saw the deep balls against Samford and in the Georgia game too, before Lagway got hurt. Like there were moments where he looked really promising. It's just, he hasn't been able to stay on the field consistently and be consistently productive when he's there. So it's like, I see a guy with a really high upside here, but do you trust it? Like, I don't know if I trust it, because it hasn't been done for more than just, a flash here and there.
So again, this is like where things really get interesting. So I'm going to talk about 4 guys here that are also probably contending for that final spot. Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown, I think even Nashawn Montgomery, maybe a name people forgot about, Khalil Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like, it's 5 guys with Aiden Mizell that are, you could tell me any of them are starting for that week 1 game and I'd believe you. Like, it's very competitive, but it's not as competitive like the offensive line group or offensive guard group, where like we've seen these guys be really good. Like Bryce Levette, when we saw him play, he was really good. And say like Roger Kearney, we're hearing so much about him in practice. It's okay, Dallas Wilson, high-ranked receiver, Vernell Brown, high-ranked receiver, Nashawn Montgomery, probably very underrated receiver, should be like top 100 level guy. We saw in the All-American game, he was maybe the best receiver there. And then Khalil Jackson, the guy who's been with the program 4 years and was starting when healthy. Should he have been starting? That's a question, but I'll let you get into this.
Yeah, well, now that you mention it, like, I just can't escape the thought that the number 3 receiver on opening day is 100% going to be Khalil Jackson.
That's
it is
what I'm thinking.
100%. I would bet anything on that right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it stays that way, but I'd bet almost anything that's what Billy does in his week 1 depth chart.
We have 2 weeks to get ready for Death Valley. So hopefully, unless he just is really good, I mean.
And he's not bad. Like, he's not bad. Like, he's a veteran who's had some nice moments. He's a reliable guy. But I think it's not like he's bad. It just would say to me a lot about where Aiden Mizell is, about, maybe these freshmen are not really ready to
where Billy is.
Yeah. Like, where Billy's headspace is at. Yeah, I would give me a lot of questions. I mean, I'd love to see Mizell take that step. I mean, I think you're going to see the freshmen like Vernell Brown and Dallas Wilson, and maybe to an extent Montgomery. He might be a little buried, a little lost in translation here. But I think especially Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown, like I think you're going to see them. I think they're going to make some sort of impact.
Sure.
I don't know. You just don't know. Like it's just we've seen a lot of different. I mean, obviously, for every Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, there are guys that are just not, for one reason or another, are just not there as true freshmen. And neither of these guys were, they're both either 5 or like fringe 4 or 5 stars, kind of on that dividing line. None of them are kind of that elite, like top 5 overall player that you kind of expect is just too good to keep off the field. I still kind of do suspect that at least one or both of them will be too good to keep off the field. But I'm not putting stock in them. Like I'm not banking my opinions on the offense off of like one of the two of them becoming very productive this year. But I think if the offense is going to reach its ceiling, you're probably going to see one or both of them become pretty impactful this year. So
I don't remember who it is. I'm trying to find it. It's such a small thing to look for. But I know Nashawn Montgomery is supposed to be working with some like former really good wide receiver during the summer, to help improve his game. That's like also a part of the fact that we already saw him be really good with other high level recruits in those All-American games. And the fact that he's going to be working with one of the better receivers in NFL history. No, I think it's Justin Jefferson.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think that's who it was. I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be working with Justin Jefferson this offseason to help improve. And I mean, Justin Jefferson, has some of the best footwork in the NFL, which is like I think we saw a good bit from Nashawn here. So that's why like I'm pretty high on him from what we've already seen him do to what he also will be learning this offseason. But man, Zach, like Khalil Jackson starting, it's like you're in a maze. You finally start going somewhere and it's like, oh, okay, I think I'm finally making my way. And it's like you see light, like you think you're at the end of the maze. You get there and it's just like a light bulb and it's a dead end. And it's Khalil Jackson. Like, you continue the maze and try to figure out when you do get there, it's going to be awesome. But you just hit like another roadblock. And that's what it feels like Khalil Jackson was when he was announced as a starter and started this season over Elijah Badger. And if he starts over like Aiden Mizell, Dallas Wilson, or Vernell Brown, or Nashawn Montgomery, it's going to be something that a lot of fans are going to be really negative towards. Whether they should be, whether they should be is a question. I mean, again, he's a solid receiver. And, it's also, we're playing these weaker opponents the first 2 weeks. So it's like, you have those extra games to get ready for the LSU game. But it's also like you're playing these weaker opponents. You should be testing out the less experienced players. Like that's when it's like, what Khalil Jackson is. You don't need to see him go on the field. But if you see Dallas Wilson go out and he goes for 100 yards in his first career game, it's like, oh, well, I mean, we have something really good here, Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with this room. I hope it's one of the younger guys that end up starting. Like, I'm not going to put too much investment into those first 2 depth charts, or if we even get depth charts, because how Billy decided to end the season after his first 2 weeks not producing them. Or did he produce one for the second game against Stanford?
I think
he did. He did. He definitely did, but then didn't. So maybe we'll just get one week 1 and we'll go the rest of the season. But then you also have some younger guys. TJ Abrams. TJ Abrams and Tank Hawkins. They should be solid depth pieces at the slot. I mean, maybe Abrams can go outside a little bit, but I don't think we see him much out there. But Tank Hawkins, I expect to get some good minutes behind Trey, especially with Trey's injury history. There's going to be some games where he's not going to get a bunch of snaps. So,
Tank had the one nice play in the Sanford game.
Who didn't?
Yeah, very true.
And then you also add another freshman, who is Tanakora. a 3-star guy who has like those measurables, like we talked about with Ada Mizell. Has the height, has the speed, less developed. I doubt we see him this season, except like
Probably not.
blowouts. Which even then, we have a lot of other guys who will get playing time over him. So overall, I'm gonna give the wide receiver. It's such a tough position because we could come back at the end of the season. Now, heck, we can come back at the end of the spring and we see like Dallas Wilson or Vernell Brown go for like 100 yards in spring game. It's like, okay, that's the guy. And it's like how Jaden Ball was, where it's like, it's a spring game, so how much can you take away from it? But it's like he just looked different out there. So I was like, I could give it a B and then come back 3 months later and it's like, oh, this room's obviously an A. I'm gonna go B plus because there's so much talent. And it's like if it ends up just being a B, I can be like, okay. But like if I picked a B and it's an A, like I'll be upset with myself.
Yeah, I'm a bit lower. I'm at a B minus.
Okay.
And I'm with you in the sense that like this could 100% be an A by the end of the season. I just like I have to look at the pieces that are there, and there's not enough. Like Trey has had really good moments, hasn't necessarily proven he can be like a number one leading receiver, and hasn't proven that he can stay healthy. Aiden hasn't proven enough. J. Michael Sturdivant, like I'm pretty high on him. Like I'm honestly probably the highest on him. Like, or I'm the most certain that he has a productive season of anyone in this receiver room, because I think that first of all, the staff has just kind of nailed their receiver transfer evaluations. Like credit where it's due. Their receiver transfer evaluations have been really good.
Ty Chico Bowman.
Yeah, there you go. No, but I mean, aside from that, no, like they just seem to do well with these guys. He seems to kind of fit the bill, and he reminds me of the previous transfers they've gotten that they've had success with, like. Because I talked about yes, he's good, but I mean, the same was true for Chimere Dike. The same was true for Elijah Badger. Dike was coming off a step back season in terms of production, and Elijah Badger had a pretty serious injury history. DK had the best season of his career, I believe. And then Badger, I mean, I think had maybe one or two games.
Badger missed the Texas game.
Yeah, but like nothing super serious for Badger. So he managed to stay healthy too. So like, I guess this is a long-winded way of saying that there's just nothing. There's not a guy that I feel just so great about. And I think if I had to bet on it, I'd say one of the freshmen makes a pretty big impact this year. There's too much uncertainty for me to go much higher than B minus, just because if there was one guy coming back that had 900 yards last year, I'd feel a little bit differently, but that guy just doesn't really exist. So.
Gotcha. So to recap, B plus, B minus.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask you, who is your prediction of the freshmen or young receivers to step up? Of any of the 4 freshmen, or like Ada Mizell, even Tank Hawkins or TJ Abrams, if you want.
I think of all those people, if I had to bet, I'd say that Mizell has the biggest season.
Mizell, okay. Yeah, that's a fair bet.
I mean, not exactly breaking ground here, but I'd say that Dallas Wilson is by far the most intriguing player to me in that group. Like the one whose talent I'm most intrigued by, but like just being realistic, I think Mizell's going to play a pretty big role, because I don't really think there's anyone on this team that's kind of good at the things that he's good at. Like I think Mizell kind of has a role of his own potentially in this offense. So I'd say he's the one I'm highest on, but it also at the same time like wouldn't surprise me if he's supplanted by a Vernell Brown or a Dallas Wilson.
Take away Mizell, just a freshman.
Just the freshman? Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's Dallas Wilson.
Dallas Wilson, okay.
Yeah, it is Dallas Wilson. I mean, like I like Vernell Brown, and actually Vernell Brown with the way Dallas Wilson's fallen kind of at the end of the cycle, Vernell Brown is like either ranking ahead of him or like right in lockstep with him. So he's ahead of him on 3. I saw that today.
The 247 composite. I think Dallas Wilson fell from 4-star status. I mean 5-star status.
Yeah, he did. He did.
And Vernell Brown is a 5-star now.
Yeah, so Dallas Wilson's 41, a 4-star, and Vernell Brown is 30, a 5-star in the on 3 industry. So I still kind of think
Dallas 247 composite. Sorry.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying both. So both of them, I'm saying that he lost
Yep.
his 5th star.
Dallas
And
is 35th on the 247 composite.
Okay.
And Vernell's 30th.
Yeah, I still, to be honest though, I don't quite understand why. I still kind of think he's got the skill set that is the most tantalizing here.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Nahshon. I'm really high on Nahshon, man. I think
More so than Dallas Wilson and
as
Vernell
a
Brown?
freshman, I do think there's some things that Dallas, like, I don't know if his footwork is going to be ready. Like, the physicality's there, but I don't see him being physical enough. I'm sorry. I don't see him being fundamental enough to play in the SEC. Vernell Brown, I'm, like, really close on as well, because I think he does have better footwork and big playability. Okay. So, but I think Nahshon has a good bit of everything. Good size, like 6'2.5". I think is what he's listed at. I think 247, like, and on 3 have him lower. So I think he measured in at the All-American game a bit higher than they had him originally. But
he's only listed at 6'1" by On3.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's like 6'3" or like 6'2 3/4. I think he grew a bit from when they last inserted those rankings. But then again, also working with Justin Jefferson, it's like I think he's gonna be that guy. I think he's gonna be that guy early too.
I like the